Buon pomeriggio, ben ritrovati. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Tea Corner, our monthly appointment to have a chat together on sustainability topics, always drinking a cup of tea together. And today I'm very happy to have with us a dear friend, Stefanie Vehring. She is the person with a lot of experience in conformity assessment, in the verification body, but even she was the person that chaired the ISO working group that developed ISO 17029, and now she's the person leading another very important standard that is 14019, that is the topic of today. But as usual, I stop to my presentation very briefly and give the floor to Stefanie. Stefanie, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Daniele, and a very good afternoon to all of you. Thanks so much for the invitation and the kind credit you're giving me, and thanks a lot for your interest in this today's Tea Corner. I will jump right at it. I'll share my screen and show you the few slides I prepared to guide me and you through that presentation on a very new work item. It's an appetizer, really. This work has just begun. It has a name, though. It's baptized ISO 14019 and is addressing the process for validating and verifying sustainability information. So I reckon you would know far more about sustainability information as I do. It's a wide field. So just to illustrate how colorful, how differently shaped and sized this could become, and this could be seen, and this could be charged with importance and relevance. This is just a very spontaneous collection of things that are usually mentioned in relation to sustainability information. The very famous set of sustainability development goals of the United Nations, setting subjects and topics in this area. More recently, and leaping over from the financial assessment world, are the three bullets: E for environmental, S for social, and G for governance. I'd like to mention at this point that animal welfare, for instance, is not mentioned or abbreviated in these short acronyms ESG. Coming from a technical world, I would like to mention that the good old dear qualities, safety and security also, to my mind, very much contribute to a sustainable world. So this is just what's out there and what is to be compiled and expressed, reported, or even disclosed in terms of sustainability information. It has to be specified somehow. We have to agree on what is considered sustainable, what contributes, what is significant, what kind of information do I have, where does it stem from, what's the technical area, what's the subject matter, is it compiled for internal reasons, is it shaped into a report, is it even disclosed for, I don't know, attracting investors or other public means. So if I do relate that complex to the world of conformity assessment I know best, this would be the description of the object that is to be assessed for its conformity by fulfilling particular specified requirements. So describing the matter, defining requirements that are to be found, criteria that are to be met, would be all of the first complex of the object we're looking at. By looking at something, we would need some methods and procedures and approaches to tackle it. And if it's about information, we do seek to confirm this information, to see whether it's reliable, whether it's true or plausible in that sense. And when doing that, I would need some ideas on how to assess the risk that I miss something, that is something understated, overstated. I would have to look for indicators and things that I can consider as evidence for confirming information and leading me to the decision that me as an assessor could say, yes, I'm quite confident, I'm almost sure I would be able to provide assurance in confirming this information. I can tell you that you can trust it. It's reliable. So that approach of assessing the object, in our case, the sustainability information, would be the big bubble of methodology that is suitable for each and individual bits of information and reports, for instance. And the last complex we consider when we talk about conformity assessment and apply conformity assessment is the question, who does it? How is it provided? By whom? Is it perhaps part of a bigger complex? That could be the case in confirming information that relates to a product, for instance, where the product is certified and verified information relating to its sustainable sourcing contributes to a bigger assessment and a bigger attestation on more than just the sustainability aspects that are to be confirmed. Another question in that area of who does it is how are these entities recognized? Are they working in governmental capacity? Are there private organizations, internal bodies even? What do they attest in the end? What kind of assurance do I get? And what might be timeframes, choreographies of performing this assessment? Is it repeated periodically, or is it a one-time only engagement? All of these questions of who performs it, how, would be the last level of conformity assessment, the one we consider already tackled by the tools we have. And one is the ISO IEC 17029 Daniela mentioned earlier. And with our new project, we therefore do not focus on this bit. Neither do we focus on specifying the information and defining sustainability criteria, which would be the first complex I presented. Instead, we entirely look at the methodology, at the processes, methods, procedures, how to validate and verify information that relates to sustainability aspects. And that already carries a differentiation for information that can be validated and information that can be verified. And we also assume that the information we're looking at would differ in terms of being figures and quantities that could be measured or recalculated when being assessed, or else rather qualitative statements that would have to be substantiated with some indicators or criteria to judge upon. So this is the idea, this is the project, that's the aim. We already reckon that we won't get away with one single document catering for all of these applications. We however, set this up as a one standard with one number, considering several parts, and began the work on part 1. That would apply to all of these processes, and at the same time with part 2, specifying or standardizing the verification process, with the idea of potentially prospectively contributing a part 3 on the validation process, and perhaps even further parts. So that would be the description of the idea of the background of its context within the conformity assessment world, and the work that has begun to be undertaken. As I said, that's an appetizer. We are just at the first rounds of developing these standards. Is a joint undertaking between the ISO TC 207 and its subcommittee 2 on environmental auditing and investigating, and jointly with the ISO Committee on Conformity Assessment. And we also relate to quite a big deal, I'd say, and we'd see how this is proceeding with the accounting world. There are accounting standards on auditing and assurance engagements for non-financial information, and also for non-financial sustainability information. So we're in close connection with these standardization boards of that community. And last but not least, we intend to develop that in parallel with the European standardization committees, in order to be able to use that for European legislation, where the check of sustainability disclosure, sustainability reporting, and sustainability information is provided by legal requirements. So that would be my sweep of what's been done and what's intended to be done. And with that, I would stop, and very happy to take your questions and engage in discussions with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefanie. Thank you for the very interesting illustration of the appetizer, as you mentioned before. So we see there is a lot of opportunity for the future, but I'm very happy that we are here today at the early stages, early steps of this process, because I believe that is a very important standard. We see a lot of requirement criteria for sustainability, but there is always lack of clarity in terms of the conformity assessment part. But I stopped myself because I would like to have more comments from the participants. So please, if somebody has any question, doubt, comment on the introduction of Stefanie, you are welcome to share with us. Don't be shy. Raise your hand.
Should I stop sharing the screen, so I can see you better?
Yeah, sure. Lucia, please.
Good afternoon, Stefanie.
Hi.
I try in English to make my question. I read some concept as I read upon procedures, concept that is very interesting and using in the verification, validation, GHG validation and verification. So my question is, in your opinion, how much it is possible to take advantages from the GHG experience in validation verification?
I think quite a bit. I'm very happy that this exists already and that it's so nicely standardized and well structured. So when compiling first ideas and drafting orientation, it's true, we very much had a look at the ISO 14064 series, and the GHG verification and validation. However, I think this might go further. It would go further in terms of subject matter. That's the idea. Greenhouse gas is just one area within the environmental area. And we would try to cater for other kinds of information as well. So we would try to be more applicable to, for instance, social or compliance or other due diligence aspects that are not yet tackled by the, or can't be tackled entirely by the environmental standards. And we also will take a slightly different approach of sorting the information, not that clearly according to the subject matter, saying this is a greenhouse gas, this is a water, this is I don't know what. We would in a first go rather differentiate between figures and quantitative data and qualitative data that would need an agreement on what do we consider good for the environment or good for gender equality or something. So we would try to move away a bit from the technical sorting mechanism and look at the kind of data rather than the subjects. And with that, I'd like to add that I do believe there will be sustainability issues where you wouldn't be able to say this is purely social or this is purely good governance, because there might be areas where this is blended and you would have to verify it nevertheless. So that's why we took this abstract, more technical approach. I do hope that relates to your question. Be assured the greenhouse gas standards are very close to our hearts and in our minds.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comment? May you articulate something more about the fundamental approach of quantitative and qualitative? So you describe the idea, the general idea is not consideration of the topic, governance, environmental, social, but qualitative and quantitative information. So yeah. I think these are very innovative aspects.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I was surprised myself. It's a result of a brainstorming when we tried to grasp this, when we discussed whether we should call it sustainability or whether we should stick to that ESG that is now so very well introduced. And but when looking at processes and approaches and methodology on how to check information, you will find that if you look closer, the information breaks down to data, and this data breaks down to whether these are quantities you can approach by statistics, by measurements, I think I mentioned that, or calculations, or else whether you have sustainability aspects that are not really measurable in that sense. There is no scale for it. There is no meter, but it is a more ideal, a more abstract statement that you intend to support this and that. So we thought that should be verifiable or validatable as well, and that would need to take an entirely different approach. You would have to have a clear understanding what gives you an indication that this is good for the forest or I don't know, supports minorities or something like that. So what would be the equivalent in the measurable world? And that reminded me a lot of the origins of conformity assessment 150 years ago, when we tackled, or our ancestors tackled, the concept of safety. We wanted safety of industrial equipment. And we had to break down the concept of safety, the ideal of safety, to, I don't know, how many screws do I need to fix this? How thick does the metal plate has to be? So we thought we should be able to deal with qualitative statements as well, if we consider that that requires less statistics and more risk evaluation, that you actually grasp the concept, that you have the right indicators, that you have the right evidence, and that you can break that ideal down to something you can assess and you can check and judge upon. So that, in a nutshell, is the idea behind that approach to task us with dealing with all sorts of information, whether you have pure figures, as you would have in the greenhouse gas area, at least in the first round, not when it comes to more complex contributions, as well as with qualitative statements that should be part of the sustainability assessment as well. So we have to see how far we get, but I'm quite confident that this at least casts the net wide enough to not miss the most important things right away.
Yes, for sure, it's an innovative approach. So obviously we need to see which shape will take the standard on this topic, but I think it's very interesting. Any comments or question to Stefanie? Claudio, please.
Yes, good afternoon. Stefanie, do you think there is a possible correlation with the European taxonomy for sustainable investment?
Yes. Yes, I do think so. And personally, I also see a relation to the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, where it is stipulated that the corporate reports have to be checked. These checks are mandatory. And the bodies, the legal entities in that directive, there are obviously the accounting firms and the statutory auditors foreseen, but also a species that is called independent assurance service providers. And in my terminology, that would be verification bodies. And these would need processes to tackle that. And these processes, to my mind, and that's my take as a citizen, would have to be standardized so that the corporate reporting is checked according to harmonized and equivalent standards. So I would go as far as seeing a role for these kind of process descriptions in that area. Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
The question of cloud is very interesting because we also have a conversation with Stefanie in the past with the full knowledge that probably the European level there is a need of more clarity in terms of the conformity assessment process. You mentioned CSRD, but also I like to also to announce that we will have a workshop the 1st of June where Stefanie will be invited again together with Davide Polverini, that is from European Commission, is the person responsible for eco-design. I had a meeting with them and was, in my view, some confusion, lack of clarity in terms of which kind of conformity assessment standard or approach used in this case. And I'm sure that this kind of workshop will open the possibility for better understanding from the side of European Commission. So for sure, there is a lot of space in this area.
I would also, if I may add, personally, I would also see this kind of work to be applicable in the area of the due diligence. To my mind, any due diligence statement or claim or reporting within the supply chain would also qualify as sustainability information and might benefit from a unified process to assess or at least sort whether this is quantitative or qualitative information and find the appropriate approach to check it, because there might be checks as well necessary.
Okay, the time is running very fast, and you mentioned the appetizer. I was looking for the fruit, for the coffee, so at the end of the dinner, and because we are working on the general part of the standard, on the verification, but we already know that in the future we need to work in durational validation, AUP, and competence, where AUP is what we call normally the new animal in the zoo. The conformity assessment, the verification validation is very interesting. There is a lot of need to better understanding on the market of conformity assessment. So we really are looking to have more clarity with this document. So I don't know if you like to spend some words in the direction of the future 3 standards.
Yeah, I'd like to. To my mind, the validation is the most important bit. To my mind, that might be even more relevant for investing, because if I reckon I'm an investor and I wonder where to put my money, I would want to know what is a promising climate action plan, for instance, or what's a promising sustainability strategy. So not being able to judge that myself, I would very much appreciate if there's a globally recognized system of trustworthy bodies checking that for me and providing me with an attestation to the reliability of these information. So the prospect of checking information that relates to the future, to my mind, in sustainability areas is perhaps even more important than the retrospective check of what has been achieved or happened in the past reporting period. So that would be, to my mind, a very, very important piece of work. The agreed upon procedures, I expect we might already tackle in that part 1, where we try to relate the common understanding from the accounting world of auditing and assurance engagements and agreed upon procedures with what we have as the flow of functions and the sequence of process steps in conformity assessment. So I would expect that we would benefit from our fundamental discussions regarding part 1 already a lot in terms of what other species are there, and are there actually so many species, or could we compile that in one consolidated type of approach. And yeah, eventually I expect that there will be more specific and more concrete descriptions needed in terms of subject matter. I don't think we would be able to tackle it on that very generic level. We are doing it right now, sorting the data and information according to its perspective, whether it's reporting on historic data or projecting of future expectations. And within these two spheres to check whether these are figures that can be measured or whether these are qualitative statements and claims that have to be grasped by other means. So I would expect more concrete details necessary when it comes to individual applications, areas, regions, perhaps, or size of organizations. So I could run wild and let my fantasy speculate, but I think it should be fair to say that. This is only the framework at most.
Thank you, Stefanie. It's already 7:30, so need to close our T corner. It was really, really interesting.
Thank you.
I like only to remind that the next meeting, the next T corner will be the 21st of June with Davide Polverini. It will be specific on eco design, but also I like to repeat again, we have a workshop the 1st of June with Stefanie and Davide to try to combine the new direction of verification validation in the direction of ESG and the needs of eco design for the European Commission. So I think it will be a very interesting meeting. So thank you everybody for the participation. Thank you in particular to Stefanie for your kind availability for this T corner, and I'm sure that we see soon another appointment.
It was a pleasure. Thanks so much. Take care.
Bye. Ciao.
Bye.